The following is a News Channel 5 special presentation.
Tonight, News Channel 5 investigates.
The reality is, when you change something big in state government, it brings up questions.
Bill Haslam was elected governor, promising to run Tennessee's state government like a business.
As a businessman, if one of my managers came in and done this with my money, I probably would have fired them.
You would have fired them?
I would have fired them.
But an exclusive News Channel 5 investigation discovered tens of millions of dollars in questionable contracts.
When government asks for advice, it should be getting that advice from someone who doesn't have a stake in the outcome.
Your tax dollars going to people with connections.
Is there any sense in which you stand to gain personally from that contract?
Absolutely zero.
And a governor with a high-powered lobbyist on his personal payroll.
1 minute you can be consulting with the governor, and the next minute you can
No,
lobby.
I don't see it that way at all.
Doing the governor's business while also doing the business of special interests.
Should people know how much you pay him?
I'm not certain what difference that would make. I'm paying him personally.
There are obvious conflicts of interest. We don't know who's getting paid how much to do what for whom, and that's not good government.
Tonight, News Channel 5 Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams and Investigative Reporter Ben Hall follow the money.
If it's not a sweetheart deal, it's the closest thing to it. They pretty much wrote their own check.
And the influence as News Channel 5 investigates.
From your news and information leader, this is a News Channel 5 Investigates special. Questions of Influence.
Good evening, I'm Rory Johnston.
And I'm Jessica Ralston. For the past year, our News Channel 5 Investigates team has taken a hard look at how your state government really works.
That's right, more than 36 stories that have triggered a statewide debate, prompted legislative hearings, and led to a scathing state audit.
And now there are calls for reform. In a few minutes, investigative reporter Ben Hall examines the cozy relationship between the governor and a high-powered lobbyist.
But first, News Channel 5 Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams follows the money.
When Bill Haslam was elected governor,
All across the state, people, what they want to talk about is jobs.
it was partly based on his business experience.
The governor of the great state of Tennessee, Bill Haslam.
And during his first 3 years in office,
How we spend taxpayer dollars should clearly reflect our priorities.
Governor Haslam's administration has been quietly taking jobs from state employees and turning them over to big business. It's an effort that was spearheaded by Haslam's General Services Commissioner, Brentwood developer Steve Cates. Here, Cates described his approach.
This is the way we've always done it, with a big red line through it.
There's a better way to get around town.
So Cates turned to Enterprise Rent-A-Car, hiring a former company executive to run the state's motor pool. Then the administration outsourced the motor pool to Enterprise's We Car program without putting the contract up for bids. Republican Mark Pody.
As a businessman, if one of my managers came in and had done this with my money, I probably would have fired them.
You would have fired them?
I would have fired them.
The administration also structured a contract for maintenance of state vehicles so that Bridgestone ended up being the only bidder. That company was once headed by Haslam Finance Commissioner Mark Empkes.
Anytime that we're doing something like this, when there's only one person or one company that says I qualify for that bid, it would cause a red flag.
And when the Haslam administration decided to outsource the day-to-day management of state buildings, it awarded a $330 million contract to Jones Lang LaSalle. JLL is a multinational corporation that our investigation discovered candidate Bill Haslam once listed among his major investments.
The fact that he was invested in this company that got this contract is disturbing if he's still invested in it.
House Democratic Caucus Chair Mike Turner.
But even the fact that he was invested at one time, there's a relationship there.
Is there any sense in which you stand to gain personally from that contract?
Absolutely zero.
The governor's office says Haslam sold his stock in JLL prior to taking office, but because he put his investments into a blind trust, they cannot say whether he currently has a financial stake in the company.
The reality is, when you change something big in state government, anything, it brings up questions and issues to folks. And this is a sea change in what we're doing.
Jones Lang LaSalle is fully committed to providing.
Still, our investigation discovered that JLL's big facilities management contract came after it was the winning bidder for a relatively small $1 million consulting contract to give the administration advice on the condition of the state's buildings. This photo taken during that process shows an intimate dinner at the governor's residence with the governor, JLL executives, including former Hall of Fame quarterback Roger Staubach.
We had the dinner because at this point in time we were thinking about them obviously managing a big chunk of the state's business, and I wanted to have a face-to-face conversation just like I would if I was going out to hire an individual to do something. To me, there's nothing extraordinary about that at all.
But just 3 weeks after that private dinner,
those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
The Haslam administration began lobbying the State Building Commission for millions of dollars in no-bid contract amendments to pay JLL to oversee the implementation of its own recommendations.
JLL has put together the master plan thus far, and so it's our belief that their implementation of this master plan is critical.
While commission members made it clear they did not want to make a habit of giving out such no-bid contracts,
if we approve today's extraordinary item, that doesn't construe that that's a new policy on our part.
They would eventually approve increasing JLL's contract from $1 million to almost $11 million without any bidding.
It's a good deal if you get it, I think. I mean, it's if it's not a sweetheart deal, it's the closest thing to it. I mean, they pretty much wrote their own check.
And in the middle of all that, our investigation discovered the Haslam administration decided to take lease negotiations out of the hands of career state employees. So they amended JLL's contract again, giving it a right to demand a 4% commission from anyone who wanted to lease the state a building.
What you're telling me is that
even the state's Republican comptroller Justin Wilson did not like what he saw, emailing, "A commission to JLL at first blush seems very wrong." He added, "I am suspicious to say the least."
The key thing is that when the government asks for advice, it should be getting that advice from someone who doesn't have a stake in the outcome.
Kathleen Clark is a professor at Washington University School of Law and an expert in ethics for government contractors. She notes that the federal government prohibits its consultants from recommending a service they just happen to offer.
You don't want advice, I would hope, where you can predict what the outcome is going to be because it's going to actually line the pockets of the person giving you that advice.
Still, after JLL convinced the administration that state employees were doing too little to maintain state buildings and costing too much, a contract to outsource those jobs was put up for bids.
Did you interview any of their competitors?
I didn't because I wasn't part of that selection process.
In fact, the selection committee was composed of State Procurement Officer Mike Perry and 2 members of Haslam's own team, Special Assistant to the Governor Larry Martin and Chief of Staff Mark Cate. Cate was one of those at that dinner.
All that independent analysis goes into something. You got 2 men working for the governor's office, and the other person's job depends on going along with what they tell him.
It makes it look political?
Oh, it's very political. It's totally political.
We're doing what we said we do all along, find the very best service we can give for the lowest price.
Still, the governor's office insists politics played no role in how JLL's $1 million consulting contract eventually turned into a multi-million-dollar deal. Critics are skeptical.
I don't want to make judgments out there that something is illegal being done or something is unethical being done. I don't want to make that call, but this does not pass the smell test.
When we return,
investigative reporter Ben Hall investigates how one corporation tried to get its way.
Did you not want people to know you were representing this company?
Absolutely not.
By hiring a lobbyist who was on the governor's own payroll.
He lobbies state agencies.
He doesn't lobby me, period.
Come and listen to my story about a man named Jed.
It's a classic strike-it-rich story.
And then one day he was shooting at some food and
In the Beverly Hillbillies, the Clampetts find oil and cash in.
black gold, Texas tea.
There's a surprisingly similar story unfolding in Tennessee.
That swamp of yours is full of oil.
Big energy companies, eager to mine on state land, are offering million-dollar deals. And suddenly state agencies are listening.
Well, doggy.
Until now, state officials have repeatedly resisted the urge to cash in. The state was concerned about diminishing the value of the land and bad publicity, even though a state estimate valued Tennessee's mineral rights at $500 million.
It's never been done before.
Correct.
But Steve Patrick with the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency says times are changing.
Is this about the money for TWRA?
Well, yeah, that's what gets your attention. I mean, we're a self-funded agency.
NewsChannel 5 Investigates discovered emails which show TWRA has been negotiating with Crossville Coal, owned by Hillsborough Resources, to expand its coal mine into the state-owned Catoosa Wildlife Management Area.
It appears from reading these emails this is controversial even within your department.
It is.
Hillsborough knew it would be controversial. The company enlisted high-powered lobbying help from the firm of Governor Haslam's former campaign strategist, Tom Ingram.
Have you ever talked to the governor about Crossville Coal?
Not to my knowledge.
Ingram not only oversaw Governor Haslam's campaign, he oversaw the governor's transition and helped pick the state's new department heads. He now runs a lobbying firm, the Ingram Group, and his website touts his connections, boasting that Ingram currently serves as a general consultant to Governor Haslam.
Since his campaign, I've continued on retainer to him for general governance or political advice.
How do you separate your lobbying from your general consulting with the governor?
Number one, everybody knows that it's a matter of public record and general knowledge.
While Ingram says he doesn't talk about clients with the governor, his firm played a prominent role with state officials when Crossville Coal wanted to lease state land.
They actually came in with Crossville Coal when they first approached the agency.
Patrick remembers the Ingram Group was always with the coal company in state meetings. He says everyone knew who was behind the firm.
Obviously, you're aware of it. You know that people are able to influence things.
While people knew the relationship, the governor kept what he paid Ingram secret.
How much do you pay him personally?
That's a personal, Alex, and I'm paying him personally.
Governor Haslam still has not disclosed how much he paid Ingram out of his own pocket.
Should that be disclosed? Should people know how much you pay him?
I'm not certain what difference that would make. I'm paying him personally. Is there some reason that would make a difference?
He lobbies state agencies.
He doesn't lobby me, period.
And he said he helps with political advice to you.
That's political advice for me. That's not about anything with state business.
Do you pay any other political consultants out of your own pocket? Just Tom Ingram?
Right. Thanks. Thank you.
Ingram and his firm lobby state officials on behalf of many clients, including Pilot Oil, which the Haslam family owns.
There was absolutely no proof of any wrongdoing.
In fact, Ingram is the spokesperson for Pilot Oil, as it deals with an FBI investigation.
What any public official pays a lobbyist ought to be known to the public.
State Democratic Party Chair Roy Herron blasted Haslam for being so secretive with his money. First, refusing to release full tax returns, then this.
Right now, we don't know who's getting paid how much to do what for whom, and that's not good government.
Haslam and Ingram insist there's no conflict having a lobbyist on the governor's private payroll, someone who regularly lobbies state agencies.
When the Ingram Group shows up, how do they know they're not talking to somebody representing the governor?
Well, if I'm there, I make it very clear.
So it can be switched on and off?
What can be switched on and off?
1 minute you can be consulting with the governor, and the next minute you can be lobbying.
No, I don't see it that way at all. If I'm wearing two hats at the time, for any reason, I'm very careful to point out to them which hat I'm there on.
State law requires lobbyists to register all their clients with the Ethics Commission. We found the Ingram Group failed to list Hillsborough Resources.
Did you not want people to know you were representing this company?
Absolutely not. I mean, no reason for us to hide the ball. I mean, that's never happened before. It was just never an oversight.
It was an oversight that lasted for 3 years. They registered after our questions.
We're going to call to order the meeting of the State Building Commission.
The final decision about whether to allow mining on public land is up to the State Building Commission.
So in the past, TWRA and other agencies looked at leasing mineral rights, but the State Building Commission said no.
Correct.
And what are they saying now?
They're saying, well, obviously they're saying yeah.
I guess I'm really concerned that it's a change in policy that seems to have happened behind closed doors.
To critics like attorney Ann Davis, that change is disturbing.
It appears that the oil and gas industry is using very powerful lobbyists with close connections to get this kind of mineral lease approved.
Now don't you sell that swamp till you hear from me.
For a cash-strapped state, the lure of money and pressure from big energy companies may be hard to resist. The question is, what's the cost of cashing in?
Y'all come back now, cheers.
Coming up,
Is this building worth saving?
It's absolutely worth saving.
Could one company make millions of dollars off the destruction of a historic state building?
So it's a conflict of interest.
Oh, it's a serious conflict of interest.
News Channel 5 investigates.
It's one of the best examples of mid-century modern architecture in the state of Tennessee.
The Cordell Hall State Office Building is, for historic preservationists, a distinctive presence on the grounds of the state capitol.
This style of architecture came off of the Great Depression, and it was meant to be simplistic, scaled down, but yet strong.
Built in 1954 with a limestone facade and hallways lined with rare Tennessee marble, the historic building could soon face demolition if the Haslam administration listens to consultants from Jones Lang LaSalle. Consultants who say the state may want to consider turning the land over to a private developer to build a modern new office building to lease back to taxpayers.
We've identified a number of buildings that are functionally obsolete.
Earlier this year, Haslam's General Services Commissioner, Brentwood developer Steve Cates, appeared before state lawmakers describing the Cordell Hall's condition in the most dire terms.
And that is a very unique situation in that it is leaking.
The building's foundation was not waterproofed correctly, the commissioner said, and trying to fix it would be a logistical nightmare. The main issue, he said,
there's not $40 million available to spend to get it where it doesn't leak, where there's not mold, where there's not mildew.
You know, you come up here to the legislature, you throw these unbelievable numbers out there. And we say, sure, that makes sense, we'll vote for that.
We showed the commissioner's testimony to House Democratic Caucus Chair Mike Turner. Then we showed him the JLL report showing the real cost of waterproofing the building's foundation, $2.8 million.
The actual cost is $2.8 million, and you're telling us it's going to cost $40 million. You either give them wrong information, you're not smart enough to know what you're doing, or you're lying to us.
Do you think he was lying to you?
I don't call anybody a liar, but boy, he was grossly misinformed.
What does it mean to be an old building?
And when lawmakers toured the building after questions raised by News Channel 5 Investigates, the building's manager quietly told his boss there really wasn't a whole lot of water damage to show.
It's dry. It's completely dry.
Right now?
Oh, yeah.
In fact, the consultants say even a massive overhaul of the building, including a new roof, new doors, new elevators, new air and alarms, would be just $24 million, far less than the commissioner's $40 million figure.
Did the commissioner lie?
No, he did not.
Instead, the commissioner's spokesperson said JLL analyzed the Cordell Hall together with the adjacent Central Services building.
And when we refer to the building, we're referring to the Cordell Hall complex, which is Central Services and Cordell Hall.
But those are two separate buildings, aren't they?
They are connected, and we evaluated them as one piece of property.
But a review of invoices shows JLL stands to make a lot of money off its recommendation to demolish the Cordell Hall and sell all 4 other state buildings. The company not only got paid for that advice,
we approve.
So far, the State Building Commission has approved commissions of almost $3 million for JLL to negotiate just 5 leases for new space.
This is a sea change in what we're doing.
On top of that, the Haslam administration agreed, according to this invoice, to pay JLL another $1 million to supervise the decommissioning of the state buildings. And when state employees are moved out, JLL also gets paid to supervise that process as well.
If I was going to make $500,000, $1 million on each one of those recommendations, I could make a lot of money real fast.
We showed the invoices to State Representative Sherry Jones.
If I were JLL and I got money for each building that I said to tear down, and then I got to oversee that and get money, and then I got to oversee leasing space, and I got money for that. I could find lots of places for people to go. I could find lots of buildings to tear down.
So it's a conflict of interest.
Oh, it's a serious conflict of interest, serious.
But the best example of the potential conflict may be this building here in Metro Center. JLL got paid to advise the Tennessee Lottery to move out. Then it got paid to advise the Department of Children's Services to move in to this very same building.
Part of the concerns that JLL voiced to the lottery was the building's mechanical and electrical systems, a less efficient floor plate design, and get this, the risk of another flood such as Metro Center has experienced before.
With all of the problems that DCS has and continues to have, we're going to move them into a building that's not efficient enough for the lottery to work in, but it's going to be okay for DCS.
And one of the buildings that JLL showed the Attorney General's office as an alternative to the Cordell Hall, the Fifth Third building on Church Street, is leased and managed by JLL itself.
I'm sure that JLL is giving the state absolutely its best advice, but that's for that corporation to make the most money it can.
But while Jones sees a conflict, both the Haslam administration and JLL insisted there isn't one, since state employees make the final decision on whether to follow the company's advice.
Is this building worth saving? It's absolutely worth saving.
Still, after a public outcry over the Cordell Hall, the Haslam administration finally agreed to get a second opinion from another consultant where there's not even the hint of a profit motive.
The state should take the time to really look at those numbers and look at other opportunities for the building before we tear down something we'll regret in 5 years.
Next, has the governor's relationship with a high-powered lobbyist influenced your state government?
It looks like Tom Ingram has been able to be on both sides at the same time.
News Channel 5 investigates.
Tom's like a lot of other business folks. He's trying to increase his business.
So how did a prominent lobbyist on the governor's payroll cash in on his connections? The Haslam administration has repeatedly insisted that there's absolutely nothing questionable about any of these relationships.
But emails first obtained by News Channel 5 Investigates show how the governor's relationship with Tom Ingram may have influenced your state government. Ben Hall continues our investigation.
This picture became an embarrassment for the Haslam administration. Days after the bill signing, the Tennessean asked who invited this couple. Chris and Andrea Ball were cited in April 2012 by the state for operating a staff leasing company without a license and were labeled as not of good moral character for lying to state investigators. At the time, Haslam aides told reporters it was a mystery who invited the couple to attend a bill signing which regulated staff leasing companies. But emails obtained by News Channel 5 Investigates show Haslam's administration was well aware of the couple. The Balls had hired lobbyist Tom Ingram. His firm sent regular updates about the Balls to the governor's chief of staff.
He doesn't lobby me, period.
Yet emails show while Ingram and his firm may not have contacted the governor directly about clients, they certainly had enormous access to his top advisors. In March 2012, Marcel Durham of the Ingram Group asked Haslam's chief of staff, Mark Cate, Andrea Ball would very much like to visit with you, however briefly, regarding the Department of Insurance action that is driving her out of business. Cate responds that he has talked with the Department of Insurance commissioner and is optimistic we can find a resolution. Then in April, Tom Ingram emails Mark Cate about the Balls company, saying this is a very troubling case. A month after that, the Balls appear at the bill signing. Then, in July 2012, Durham complains to Cate about a specific fraud investigator with the state, concerned about the level of surveillance on the Balls company. Cate asks to be kept in the loop. The emails show a level of access likely to make other lobbyists envious. Ingram and his firm communicate with Mark Cate while he's on vacation in the Bahamas and on holiday weekends. But the emails also reveal Ingram's firm may have represented more than just one client without properly registering with the state.
It's never happened before. It was just never an oversight.
That's what Tom Ingram said in May when we discovered that his firm failed to register as a lobbyist for a coal company that wants to mine on a state wildlife area. But we also found emails sent on behalf of Higher Education Partners, LLC, setting up a meeting in the Ingram Group's offices with a top state official. Ingram didn't register lobbying for that company until 3 months later. State law requires a lobbyist to register within 7 days of being hired to lobby by a client. The Ingram Group sent us a letter saying that using their influence to set up meetings with government officials does not constitute lobbying.
The reason you have these reporting regulations in place is so that everybody will know what side of the game you're playing on.
The head of Gill Media, Steve Gill, who was a conservative talk radio host, says the whole situation looks bad.
If Republicans were looking at a Democrat governor doing the same sort of things we've seen with the private, under-the-table hiring of Tom Ingram, they'd be pitching a hissy fit.
People are worried about, okay, well, is there some conflict with, me paying Tom and he's, lobbying? Well, think about it this way. If I'm spending time with Tom Ingram and I'm paying him, am I going to be paying about are we going to be talking about what his client wants to talk about or what I want to talk about?
Our investigation also discovered at the same time Ingram and his firm lobbied the governor's office, Ingram and Haslam planned for the governor's upcoming re-election campaign. In October of 2012, the governor's chief of staff emailed Tom Ingram about a 2014 planning retreat. Kate asked Ingram, as well as Haslam's chief fundraiser, to set aside 8 hours for the two-day meeting. Later, Ingram suggested having the retreat at the Lowe's Vanderbilt Hotel because he preferred to get away from government space.
In this case, it looks like Tom Ingram has been able to be on both sides at the same time, and that's what's really disturbing.
When we come back,
our investigation sparks legislative hearings.
We were 100% confident at the end that this was a fair process.
And Phil Williams discovers emails that raise questions about whether lawmakers were told the whole truth.
The practical effect is the committee's going to have another shot at them.
Change is not easy.
This summer, Haslam administration officials appeared before the legislature's Fiscal Review Committee.
Change in government is even harder.
To defend two big contracts that outsource the state's real estate operations to the Chicago-based corporation Jones Lang LaSalle.
You can see an exposed high-voltage electrical panel.
The governor's chief of staff, Mark Cate, highlighted JLL's findings about the condition of state buildings and repeated claims that the company's multi-million-dollar contract will save taxpayers tens of millions of dollars.
We were 100% confident at the end that this was a fair process, and we are 100% confident in the end that this is the right thing to do for our state.
Is anybody here in the Comptroller's office, Mr. Chairman?
Then administration officials were asked point blank if contract watchdogs from the state Comptroller's office had raised any concerns.
The Comptroller's office having a comment on the way it was being done as it moved along?
Yes, sir, they provided feedback.
What did they feed you back?
They asked, as they should, they asked for information about what we had looked at, just as you did.
But what Department of General Services lawyer Chloe Schaefer did not tell lawmakers,
and we provided them with answers that we believe they found satisfactory,
was that she had repeatedly received emails from the Comptroller's office questioning different aspects of the contract, included the portion that lets JLL handle lease negotiations for the state and ask for a 4% commission from anyone who wants to lease the state a building. The director of the Comptroller's Office of Management Services, Melinda Parton, wrote, "This was negotiated with JLL with no opportunity for anyone else to offer their services." She added, "Don't agree with continuing to negotiate services without competition."
Don't agree with continuing to negotiate services without competition. So, to me, that means there's a difference of opinion, to say the least.
We showed the email to House Democratic leader Craig Fitzhugh.
If the administration or whomever had said that that the comptroller thought the contract ought to be rebid, I think there should have been at least further conversation about it.
We've asked our staff fiscal review, and they feel that everything is square as far as the contract is concerned. The comptroller has done the same.
And the committee's chairman, Republican Bill Ketron, also suggested the contract had the full blessing of the comptroller, who our investigation discovered had written in this email last year, "A commission to JLL at first blush seems very wrong."
Ultimately, brokering our leases is going to save the state millions and millions of dollars because of their experience that we just quite frankly don't have in-house.
In fact, Haslam administration officials had responded that the commissions should not matter since the money would be paid by the landlords, not the state. But in another email that the committee never saw, Melinda Parton wrote, "This is a cost to the state of Tennessee no matter how the payment is set up." She added if a commission was not being charged, the cost to the state would be lower. That's why she suggested that the state should seek competition to make sure it is getting a good rate for taxpayers.
We give our views on that. Sometimes they're accepted and sometimes they're not. This is not unusual because we're not the ones who make the management decisions.
While Comptroller Justin Wilson claimed he had no authority in his role on the State Building Commission to block the contract, his office recently produced this scathing audit of the Department of General Services. It concludes JLL had an unfair advantage when it turned its million-dollar consulting contract into a multi-million-dollar deal.
Well, that is a potential conflict of interest.
Even more bluntly, the audit concluded, because JLL can benefit financially from the advice it renders the state, we believe that it cannot offer unbiased, impartial advice in the state's best interest. It added, there is a risk that JLL may recommend unnecessary leases so that it can profit from them. The comptroller says he believes the Haslam administration just got into too big of a rush.
They saw a problem, they wanted to solve it. And they wanted to solve it quickly. And I think that they probably should have taken a deep breath and to slow down a little bit.
Thank you and welcome General Services here.
Yet at a recent budget hearing before the governor, General Services officials showed no signs of backtracking, and the new commissioner Bob Oglesby claimed not to know that auditors had questioned JLL's judgment.
The audit was very blunt that JLL cannot be trusted to give impartial advice when it has a profit motive. Do you disagree with that?
That's not the way I read that at all.
So we went back to the audit, and there it was on page 29, quote, because JLL can benefit financially from the advice it renders the state, we believe that it cannot offer unbiased, impartial advice.
So what's wrong with that statement?
Which part of that statement?
That JLL cannot be trusted to give impartial advice when it has a profit motive.
I'm not sure I even understand that comment.
Do you not trust the comptroller and his staff?
Oh, sure, I trust them, and they have a very vital role to play in it.
Still, the Haslam administration responded to the audit by saying auditors have a basic misunderstanding of the JLL contract.
JLL doesn't have the final say. It's got to come back. Anything involving a lease or a building, it's got to come back before the State Building Commission and has to be approved by the department as well.
And when the comptroller raises the issue about competitiveness of a contract, I can't see why, if anybody knew what they were talking about, would not say that there's, something amiss here.
We'll call the State Building Commission to order.
And despite the audit, the administration recently asked the State Building Commission to approve yet another multi-million-dollar expansion of JLL's consulting contract. Behind the scenes, the Lieutenant Governor says the commission finally put the brakes on the deal.
What happened? Did someone say, hold on, enough?
Well, yeah, I'll be right. Yes, absolutely. The Speaker and I both spoke to them.
This will allow for the orderly wind down of contracted pre-planning, facility assessment, and master planning services.
A final amendment approved by the commission will now bring JLL's consulting contract to an end.
That you will be coming before us again.
And just days ago, a legislative committee voted to demand that Department of General Services officials appear before them during the coming session to prove why the department itself should continue to exist.
This will require them to come before the committees again and to explain what's been going on. That's the practical effect of it. The practical effect is the committee's going to have another shot at them.
Coming up, the governor insists his personal payments to a high-powered lobbyist are none of the public's business.
Governor Haslam is hiding the full extent of his financial relationship.
News Channel 5 investigates.
Had him on a personal retainer, no state money, no campaign money.
Governor Haslam spent much of the spring insisting there was nothing wrong with keeping his payments to lobbyist and consultant Tom Ingram a secret.
It wasn't fair to have the state pay Tom, and he wasn't doing political work to where it should be campaigning.
But Haslam's private payments are unusual. U.S. Senators Lamar Alexander and Bob Corker also pay Ingram for his advice, but both report those payments to the public.
I think that's something that the public might deserve to know.
The chair of Common Cause in Tennessee, Dick Williams, says the public should know at least a range in which the governor pays Ingram. Alexander's campaign paid Ingram $30,000 in the first 3 months of the year. Bob Corker's campaign paid Ingram $349,000 to help Corker defeat disavowed Democratic candidate Mark Clayton.
There's a difference between somebody getting paid a couple $1,000s a year or even a month versus 50 or more.
State law is clear. If someone is paid to do campaign work, it should be disclosed on campaign finance reports for the public to see.
If you're paying someone to do campaign activity, you have to disclose that expenditure. You're required by statute to disclose that expenditure.
But Ingram's own lobbying registrations with the state show 3 times in which Ingram's relationship with Haslam was listed as campaign consultant for the governor. And when our investigation uncovered emails that showed Ingram had done campaign-related work, the governor said Ingram did the campaign work for free.
He's on retainer, so he's being paid by you.
But he's on retainer for other work. Okay, I don't know how to make that more clear.
It's a distinction the governor says allows him to keep the details of his business relationship with Ingram private.
Why is it so important to not go ahead and disclose?
Because it's this. At some point in time, there's a point there of, you can say, well, why don't you also tell us what you pay your lawyer, the person who's managing the blind trust for you? Why don't you tell us what you're paying him?
But this was related to the campaign, and the law says campaign expenses should be reported.
Right, but again, there are other people there. The pollster, he'll get paid, so he didn't charge us for his time, because he knows he'll get his money during the campaign. It's the exact same thing with Tom.
The governor's campaign was never short on money. So it's not a matter of penny pinching when they decide we're going to pay this out of this account or pay this out of this account. It's because they didn't want people to know.
Critics on both sides of the aisle questioned the arrangement.
No one is above the law, and that's why I'm here today filing this ethics charge.
In August, the former chair of the Tennessee Democratic Party officially filed complaints with the Ethics Commission and the Registry of Election Finance.
Governor Haslam is hiding the full extent of his financial relationship with Tom Ingram.
Tom Ingram dismissed the filing as a political stunt. Forrester said he did not coordinate with the Democratic Party and filed as a concerned citizen.
Call the meeting of the Tennessee Registry of Election Finance to order.
In October, the Registry of Election Finance took up the issue of whether the governor had broken campaign finance laws.
Policy arguments aside as to whether public officials have a duty or should have a duty to disclose things, looking at the law.
Politically appointed members of the committee expressed sympathy with the idea that perhaps the public should know more about Governor Haslam and his relationship with Ingram.
I can see how there may have been a perception that there was something that was unethical.
Forrester's complaint included reports from NewsChannel 5 Investigates based on emails revealing that Ingram continued to do campaign work, including attending that 2014 planning retreat.
I don't even know if they exist.
But Haslam's lawyer questioned if the emails were even real, since Forrester did not file them with his complaint. A line picked up by Republican appointees on the commission.
And it's been 5 months ago since this first arose. I would have hoped that media would have published those emails if they were so inflammatory and compromising.
In fact, they had been published on NewsChannel5.com and by other media. Governor Haslam himself even said they existed.
It would have been wrong for him to use campaign funds to obtain consulting services in connection with purely political, non-campaign activity.
Still, even Democratic appointees suggested that the governor might be taking advantage of a legal loophole.
I could not find where there was any violation as stated in the law.
All in favor of dismissing the complaint, say aye.
Aye. The registry dismissed the complaint, just as the Ethics Commission did in an earlier private meeting, meaning the details of the governor's arrangement with a prominent lobbyist will remain secret.
When we come back, more discoveries and more fallout.
I think we all want to save the state money, but it doesn't mean that you can't have some basic minimum ethical standard in place.
As NewsChannel 5 investigates questions of influence. Over the past year, our NewsChannel 5 investigation has uncovered even more questions about who's influencing your state government.
In one case, a legal complaint over a questionable moving contract led to the discovery of some potentially damning emails.
The emails emerged as part of a legal claim seeking damages filed by Sanders Moving Company. Sanders is a Nashville firm whose history dates back to the horse and buggy days. Last year, the Haslam administration abruptly canceled a moving contract that the longtime Tennessee company had with the state. Sanders argues it was done to give the business to Flood Brothers Moving out of Atlanta. In emails that Sanders' lawyer filed with the state's claims division, Kurt Herron, a career employee in the Tennessee Department of General Services, says bluntly, "We've already broken several laws."
The people involved insist no laws were broken, but the final decision will be up to a judge.
News Channel 5 Investigates also uncovered questions about Tom Ingram's involvement with the most unusual exhibit at the Tennessee State Museum that was supposed to debut at a most unusual time.
I was proud to be a nominee of the Republican Party.
It's an exhibit that highlights Lamar Alexander's 2 terms as governor.
Well, it's nice to meet you.
His famous walk across Tennessee.
That I will support the Constitution.
And his unprecedented swearing in 3 days early to end the scandal-plagued administration of Governor Ray Blanton.
This is one of the pivotal stories in Tennessee's contemporary political scene.
The longtime head of the Tennessee State Museum, Lois Riggins-Ezell, planned to create a traveling exhibit despite internal concerns about the timing.
Well, when we first started talking about it, it was a general understanding that he probably wasn't going to run.
But Alexander did announce he would seek re-election to the Senate and has been busy campaigning. Despite that, the museum still planned to open the exhibit next month in East Tennessee and take it across the state through next year's election.
Right after we started asking questions, the State Museum put that exhibit on hold.
Our investigative team also discovered serious questions about a process that shut out other potential bidders for a vehicle maintenance contract.
In fact, the emails show Bridgestone was the one suggesting new dates for the vendors' conference. The company even pushed for some private discussion time with state officials to discuss the bidding process. Asked about rescheduling the meeting just for Bridgestone's benefit, Commissioner Cates replied simply, "Okay."
It's almost like there was something, they knew that this is the company they had to have at that meeting.
This is for the entire state of Tennessee.
And recordings show that when the meeting was held here inside state offices, the moderator told one interested vendor that the process was on such a fast track that he probably would not have time to find partners he would need in West Tennessee to be able to bid.
It would be kind of complicated, I believe, to partner up with somebody else at this short length of time. I don't know. But I would say probably it's going to be pretty tough on you.
As a result, the Haslam administration announced that contract would be rebid.
Plus, there was that controversial plan to mine coal in a state wildlife area.
And what are they saying now?
They're saying, well, obviously they're saying, yeah, it's something that they're willing to consider.
For now, those efforts have been put on hold.
And on top of all of that, our investigations also sparked a spirited political debate across Tennessee. The Knoxville News-Sentinel called for the governor to disclose what he paid Tom Ingram, saying there was nothing wrong with paying Ingram, or anyone else for that matter, for political insight.
The News-Sentinel added, he just needs to divulge such transactions to the citizens of Tennessee so they know who is speaking into the governor's ear. The governor did put Ingram back on the campaign payroll back in July, so we will know what he gets paid going forward.
The Memphis Commercial Appeal also suggested that Haslam, who comes from one of the wealthiest families in the state, should disclose his own finances, saying as long as the governor refuses to be fully transparent about his investments, conflict of interest suspicions will continue to lurk in the background.
Here in Nashville, the Tennessean noted, we've long heard about how Tennessee state government would be following the best business practices, so it's puzzling to see how little stock the Haslam administration puts in audits conducted within the state government. As a result of our investigation and the state audit, one lawmaker has already filed legislation to change the way state contractors do business.
And it basically says that when a company is in a consultant role, such as we've seen here, that they then would be prevented from profiting off of their own recommendations to the state. The governor has pointed out that he wants to save the state money over the next several years. I think we all want to save the state money on any number of things, but it doesn't mean that you can't have some basic minimum ethical standard in place for these contractors to follow.
The State Building Commission is also looking at new conflict of interest guidelines.
And our investigation isn't over. Our News Channel 5 Investigates team continues to dig into who's influencing your state government.
That's right, and if you know of something we should investigate, send us your tips. The email address, investigate@newschannel5.com.
Or you can call 615-244-NEWS. If you want to see all the stories from our investigation and the documents we uncovered, go to newschannel5.com.
And thanks for watching as News Channel 5 investigates.